What's the difference between cheap and expensive wine? We get that question quite often here at Alma Wine and Liquor. I'm Tim. I'm here to answer that question and others that you may have about wine and spirits. Um, so basically, we have wines that start as low as $5.99 a bottle, and we have wines that go up well over $100 a bottle. And sometimes customers ask, well, what's the difference? What am I paying for? Why shouldn't I just get the cheapest thing I can find? I'd compare it to something like steak or cheese or really anything. If you're buying the cheapest of the particular product, you might not really get a true representation of what that product is about. So if you're new to wine and you haven't had a lot of exposure to it, starting with something at the lowest end, the cheapest end, might not give you the true feel for what wine is and what it can be and what you might enjoy about it. So I usually recommend starting with something a little bit more in the mid-tier, or at least trying mixing in one or two in the mid-tier to get an exposure to it. As to why some wines are so much more expensive and some are on the cheaper end, it a lot of times comes down to production. So with the more expensive wines, they are sourcing their grapes and their juice from land and vineyards that charge a higher price for them. This higher price can come because the land is in a more desirable area, because it's known for growing better quality grapes or higher yields of grapes due to the climate and the soil conditions of that particular vineyard. That's one input cost that can raise the quality of the wine. The second thing is the quality of the winemaker, the experience level, the equipment that they're using, the techniques that they use, can all impact what they want to charge for that wine. So you can find some cheaper wines at a good value, at a good bargain. If it's an up-and-coming winemaker or winery that doesn't have a big solid brand association behind it, or it's comes from a land area or country that's up and coming, that the vineyards and the grapes haven't been priced so high. Because at the end of the day, grapes are a commodity, so they get priced accordingly, according to what people will pay for them. So it's all about supply and demand. So when you're asking what's the difference between an expensive and a cheap bottle of wine, you need to kind of evaluate all these different factors. So if you are a casual wine drinker and it's something you only drink once in a while on a special occasion, you might feel like you might not appreciate the difference between an expensive and a less expensive bottle of wine, but you'll never really know unless you give it a chance. So if you're typically drinking wines in the lower price points, the $5, $6, under $10 price points, you might want to step up once in a while and buy something for $15, $20, $30. This 20 Rose Napa Valley Cabernet is a great example of a good value wine that you can get for $19.99. And there are some other ones out there that your local wine shop should be willing and able to help you find. That type of exposure, you might start noticing different flavors and different complexities in the wine that a little bit different from the lower end wines that you're used to. If you're typically drinking wines in the $20, $30, $40 range, every once in a great while you might want to step up and buy something that's a little bit more pricey. That again, on the recommendation of somebody in your local wine shop or a restaurant, that you can get something like this by the glass, so you're not investing in a whole bottle. That will be able to help steer you towards something that meets some of the criteria that you're used to, and gets you exposed to something a little bit different and a little bit more unique. So when it comes down to it, the basic core of the question, what's the difference between cheap and expensive wine, is lots of things. The price of the grapes, where they're grown, the skill level of the winemaker, the experience level of the winemaker, the brand that's associated with the wine. All these things can play into the cost, the final cost to the consumer of the wine. It doesn't always make one better than the other, but you will find that on a typical basis, when you're spending a little bit more on a bottle of wine, you might find some things, some characteristics, some flavors that you wouldn't find in a lower priced wine that you really do enjoy. Thanks very much for watching, and hope to hear your comments and questions for future episodes.